I have with us Sanj Goyle from Yahoo, Carolyn Hodge from TRUSTe, Gary Kibel with the law firm, and we're going to try to do our very best today to talk about compliance from the ground level up and not talk about it from a high level, but how do you get compliant, how do you be compliant? We're expecting our audience today, we may have some guests from the Federal Trade Commission and from the Florida AG's office, so maybe they'll want to answer some questions if they feel like it or participate. We welcome them in our presentation. It's very interesting to me about how topical and how relevant compliance is. This is today's Wall Street Journal, and it's the business section, and the article is How to Create a Successful Website for Nothing. And it goes on for about a page and a half telling people basically how to be a merchant or an affiliate. And the word compliance is not used one time in here. So you're going to have somebody who is going to be up and running, selling a service or a product on the web and not know there's any statutes or regulations that affect how you advertise. And I think that's an invitation to problems, as we all know, that if you're not compliant, you've got problems with your regulators, your own industry, and the ability to make money and keep it. So today, our goal is talking about how do you strive to be 100% compliant. So I have a little video here from our company that we made in introducing people to compliance. So Gary, you want to help me with that video?
Oh, hi, I'm Molly, Compliance Coordinator for Media Breakaway. I'm just hanging out, deciding if I should terminate some affiliates for compliance or non-compliance. I was asked to do a presentation on compliance, what we do and how we do it, and I thought the best way to tell you is to show you. So I put together some of our best compliance tools to put out a little demonstration for how we do things around here. First, we have what I like to call the compliance spinner. It's a pretty basic tool. All you do, spin the arrow, and it'll tell you, this affiliate is not compliant. Next, we have what I like to call the 50-50. Now, this tool really gives your affiliate a fair chance. As you can see, notated on one side is an NC for not compliant, and on the other side is a nice big C for compliant. Let's see. Ooh, not compliant again. The next way we give your affiliates a shot is with the compliance dartboard. Ooh, not compliant again. Lastly, we have the trusty magic 8-ball. Is CD 17421 compliant? Outlook not so good. Come on, guys, do you really think that's the way things work around here?
You want to get rid of that? Get our slideshow back on. Thanks. Okay, so, at our company, CSI stands for Compliance Special Investigator. And all those people you saw in there are all people on our compliance team that work full-time on making sure our company, our affiliates, and our advertisers are compliant. So what we do is we take an approach, hopefully this thing is working. Oh, wait, sorry. is to be proactive, is not to wait to find out there's a problem, but try to prevent the problem from happening. So our first thing is on being prepared to be compliant, and that is that you want to know about what statutes and regulations are out there and what are the industry standards, and our panel obviously is going to address that today. The second step is preventing from being non-compliant, and that's through, you know, what we have mimicked now is what the banks have been doing, which is called Know Thy Customer, is we put our affiliates and advertisers through a pretty hard vetting process. We probably accept about 8% of the applications we get for affiliates on every day, and we probably get 35, 40 applications a day. Last is to protect your integrity. It's what you have and it's what you can lose. So it's very, very important for you to do everything in the above, because when you get the knock on the door from the regulators or, you know, from the Attorney General's office or the FTC, is you have to show that you took compliance seriously. And there's a lot of carrots out there if you do this. You'll see and you'll hear in the presentations that the Can-Spam Act and most of the regulators will absolutely give you the benefit of the doubt, and there are caps on what the damages could be if you can show that you not only have a system in place, but that you're using your system. So the theme of our presentation today is going to be on these 3 Ps and being proactive. So I'd like to introduce our first panel speaker. It's Gary Kibel. Gary?
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Gary Kibel. I'm with the AV staff here at the Convention Center. Actually, I'm an attorney and deal with a lot of advertising and new media clients, so compliance is a big issue in dealing with interactive, whether it's affiliate marketing or any type of online advertising. Well, one thing that people ask me all the time is, all right, so how should I do this? How should I do it right? And I always say, well, it's very informative. Let's go look at people who've done it wrong, and let's learn from their mistakes. So I'm going to show you, give you a little information on some FTC enforcement actions of people who did it wrong, and we'll learn from their mistakes, and we'll get some really helpful tips. This first one is the FTC versus CleverLink, and CleverLink was sending out spam to drive traffic to their Date Lonely Wives website, where they had a service. And they were basically violating Can-Spam in every single way you can imagine. Misleading headers, there was no opt-out, no physical address. For those of you who don't know, Can-Spam has only one labeling requirement for the subject line, and that's for adult content. It must say sexually explicit. So when you look in your spam folder and you see all the spam that says sexually explicit, those are the pornographers who are actually following the law. Well, but they were doing everything wrong. So they got hit with a judgment of $2.6 million. It got reduced to about $300,000 because the defendants didn't have assets. They had to come up with this money personally out of their own pockets. And one defendant didn't have enough money to pay, so the FTC actually ordered him to sell his car. So that just shows you how serious this can be. You can actually lose your wheels. Well, one of the big things about the case was they required the company to put in place an affiliate monitoring program. And we're going to hear about that a lot during this session, how to monitor your affiliates. Well, if you want to know, how do I put an affiliate monitoring program together? Well, let's take a look at how the government tells you you should do your affiliate monitoring program. That's a great way to learn. First thing, obtain name, physical address, telephone number, all the information. You have to know who your affiliates are. These can't just be numbers. These can't just be people that you could never identify if there was a problem. The second one, they were required to provide each affiliate a copy of the FTC order. That's kind of just, the embarrassing factor. You get to go, I hear my mom told me to give this to you. And you have to give a copy of the order to show that you've done something wrong. You have to get the affiliates to agree to comply with the FTC order. All right, if you're putting together a compliance program, get your affiliates to sign that they're willing to comply with whatever your procedures are. They have to put an email address on consumer pages. Always, whenever you're doing any type of online marketing, make it very simple and intuitive for consumers to contact you and to opt out of your programs. Never make it a burden for a consumer. Comply with industry standards, investigate complaints, and they wanted consumers to indicate how they were procured so they could see whether it was from email marketing or otherwise. And then they had to institute a one-strike policy. Terminate any affiliate who violates Can-Spam or the FTC order. No second chances here. They said one time and you're out. And then hit the affiliates where it counts. They said notify them if you violate, you're going to lose your money. You're going to forfeit the monies you've earned. Then you had to provide a link to their email policy and, of course, maintain records that the government can come back in and take another look. Well, people get nervous about canned spam. They think, my gosh, I let my affiliates send out emails. I'm liable no matter what. Well, this recent case is very interesting. This was a case where the FTC wanted to hold Impulse Media liable for the content of the spam being sent by their affiliates. Now, they had an affiliate program that prohibited email. They also provided the affiliates with creative for their websites, but said they couldn't use it on email. And the court said, the court rejects plaintiffs' efforts, the FTC, to characterize canned spam as a strict liability statute, meaning you're liable no matter what happens. The plain language of the act requires that the FTC prove that defendant intentionally paid or induced another party to undertake the specific act of sending commercial email. So what's that telling you is that if you, running a program, tell your affiliates, here is my compliance program, you cannot do the following things. If your affiliates end up violating that compliance program, you may not be liable. Whereas beforehand, people thought, if my affiliates make a mistake, I'm going to be liable under canned spam no matter what. Well, one more thing before I'll pass on to the next speaker, another interesting case that really teaches you a lesson that if you put a program in place, compliance, privacy policies, terms and conditions, you need to follow what you do and enforce what you do. In this case, Greer versus 1-800-Flowers. Mr. Greer wanted to order some flowers for his girlfriend. So it's a very nice thing. So he calls up 1-800-Flowers and decides to order some flowers. Now, Mr. Greer was actually concerned about privacy. So he asked on the telephone, what's your privacy policy? And they directed him to their website where they said, oh yes, we have a link at the bottom. It has a privacy policy. We don't give your information to anybody. We keep it completely secret. You'll be okay. So Mr. Greer's all happy to order the flowers for his girlfriend. He places the order with the credit card. One thing that Mr. Greer didn't clear when he was ordering the flowers for the girlfriend, he didn't clear it with Mrs. Greer. So he was married. Now, 1-800-Flowers had a policy at the time. They would send you a thank you card when you ordered flowers. So what did 1-800-Flowers do? They sent it to the home billing address on the credit card. So Mrs. Greer goes to the mailbox. She sees the letter from 1-800-Flowers. She opens it up. She says, we didn't order any flowers. I don't know why 1-800-Flowers is thanking us. So she calls up 1-800-Flowers and says, we got this card. What is this all about? And 1-800-Flowers proceeds to tell her everything. They say when Mr. Greer ordered the flowers, what type of flowers, who they were being sent to, even the content of the note that went along with the flowers. So Mr. Greer goes ahead and sues 1-800-Flowers for violating their privacy policy. Now, I personally think he started the lawsuit because he needed to fund his impending divorce proceedings. But the point being, if you have a privacy policy, if you have a compliance policy, follow what you do. Don't just have someone in the office put it together and post it and ignore it. Don't hire a lawyer. Well, let me preface that. Hire a lawyer, but don't hire a lawyer, have them draft something, and then ignore what they do. It's a multi-step process here. You develop your policies, and then you must enforce those policies. Otherwise, they're really just hollow promises. Okay, and with that, I will turn it over to Sanj.
Thanks a lot, Gary. Boy, that was actually very good. I don't have any good stories like that to share. Just let me give you a little bit of my background. I'm a senior director in the lead generation group at Yahoo. And so Yahoo typically has not, I think everyone knows who Yahoo is, and it's the publisher, I think, of record for a lot of the affiliates that are here at the show. Most of the discussion we've had is about email marketing, and the good percentage of the recipients who get marketing communications have a Yahoo email address. And so what I'm going to speak to is Yahoo as an ISP. What are some of the considerations we have that intersect with the affiliate business? And I couldn't agree more with the comments that Steve and Gary and I think Carolyn are going to make, that compliance isn't just a buzzword. It's very, very important. Yahoo, as kind of the carrier who delivers the marketing communications, cares very much. It also takes a view that's very consistent with what Gary said, that it's very much the burden of the sender. And I'll get to that in a minute. So one of the specific questions, and this assumes a little bit of knowledge, and let me lay some groundwork. Does everyone know what a mail feedback loop is? Does everyone know what we're talking about? Okay. So what we're talking about here is, for many of you who are either or advertisers where you have offers and you're going to work with affiliates to distribute the offer and generate sales for you, or you're in an ad network or affiliate network where you have affiliates that are sending email for you. One of the complaints, or one of the processes that happens is you send an email out, and you may have thought you sent it properly with the user's consent. That user complains. He gets a mail in their inbox, and I think we've all had this experience where you get a mail, you think that it was not appropriate that you got it. It could be something sexually explicit that wasn't advertised, or whatever it is that runs the gamut. And you complain to your ISP and say, this is spam. Well, there's a process that's kicked off with the ISP that actually received that mail and sent it on to the recipient. And that, we actually look to say, okay, who was the sender of that mail? And we look at their IP address, we try to identify who that is, and we take actions related to if there is a high percentage of your emails that are being sent out that are now being flagged by, as spam for the recipients. Does everyone follow that? So that if you've got an email list, you're sending out to it, Yahoo gets complaints from users that they didn't want to get these emails. And so what it does is it takes action against the senders, essentially blocking further emails based on spam complaints. So the feedback loop is a way for the sender of the email to communicate with Yahoo and say, hey, wait a minute, we think we did follow the process. Steve, do you want to add any? Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So that feedback loop is a very important mechanism that affects the affiliate marketing community. And one of the things that I was asked to speak to is, when Yahoo looks out at affiliate marketing, hey, what are some of the steps that Yahoo cares about? What do they have that could be of use to you as either an affiliate marketer, advertiser, or just a consumer? So the first thing is, Yahoo, just to digress a little bit, Yahoo had a manual process for providing a feedback mechanism to affiliate marketers. And it was an overwhelming success. In fact, it was inundating. And there was not the appropriate level of resources to actually address the amount of response that it got. So that was taken down. And if you look at the site here, I've given you a site that is the help page for Yahoo Mail. And I can make this publicly available after the conference as well. But this indicates that Yahoo is developing an automated process that will roll out in the next upcoming weeks here, so that it can automate this feedback loop, so that you can provide Yahoo the right data, you can respond to the spam complaints, and hopefully we can give you a more accurate and quick response. And there is also, I don't know if we can go into here, but there's actually a ton of help on the Yahoo Mail page that you can see the processes that, if you want to look for further compliance, that are there. The second part is, Steve asked me to speak to, was about getting on the Yahoo Mail whitelist. So the Yahoo Mail whitelist, for those of you who don't know, the Mail whitelist is basically a ISP giving you the benefit of the doubt, saying the presumption is the mail you send will be compliant. So what that does is it increases your deliverability rates, and sometimes it can be pretty dramatic. Analogy of being on the whitelist might be, if you want to get your traffic on a search engine's first page, that's really where you want to be. Getting on a mail's whitelist could have that same effect for you in terms of traffic. So one of the things, and this is a consistent theme I think you'll hear, or are hearing, is that to get on the mail list, the whitelist, sorry, the Yahoo Mail team goes through a very simple calculus. They look to see how many mails are you sending to yahoo.com recipients, and what is the amount of spam complaints that those emails are generating. And it is subjective. I don't think there's any published standards that the mail team has provided, but essentially you're evaluated based on how well your consumers are appreciating your email. And I think that what this goes to, what Gary's saying is the burden, Yahoo takes the position that it's really the burden of the sender. You may have complied with all of the opt-in procedures. You may have registered a opt-out within the statutory time period. All of that may have taken place, but the feeling is if the mail was of the type that the user wanted, then there would be a smaller percentage of complaints. And that's really the calculus that I would advise all the affiliate marketers to keep in mind. One of the things I thought might be interesting, I had some raw numbers that might put this in perspective. And Steve, you just give me a little latitude. It's not a promo for Yahoo. I just thought it would show the size of the problem or the task. Yahoo Mail processes 2 billion emails per day. There are 30 million users per day that access Yahoo Mail. So, and right now it still has the dominant market share, not only in the United States, but in the world. And so it's really the most successful communications platform that the internet has seen so far. And one of the major complaints, the number one complaint that it gets from about the mail service is spam, is emails to inboxes that they don't want to see. And if you think about what affiliates, like you're here at this show, so you're involved in affiliate marketing. And the number one issue is traffic, right? I mean, your lifeblood, your kind of the fountain starts at, okay, do you have traffic? Well, Yahoo is no different. It sees it same way. It just has a tremendous amount of traffic. And the feeling is that in order to maintain that, to provide a good service, it's very consumer focused, that it really has to think of the consumer as the customer, and the customer is always right. So, you know, given the size, the kind of the sheer volume of it and where Yahoo perceives itself, we really look to see, is the consumer having a good experience? And as an email marketer, if you could, if you really think through, is your opt-in that you get from a consumer meaningful? Are you sending offers that they want to see? And if you feel comfortable with that, then I think there's a basis where you can have a continuing relationship with your recipients that Yahoo is in a good position to support. And then also, I just did want to emphasize that there is on the same Yahoo help page a reference to some of the organizations and that have material on best practices for email. That's it. Oh, and now we have Carolyn Hodge from TRUSTe.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Hodge from TRUSTe. I'm going to follow up your comments in particular regarding taking it back to the end customer who is the consumer and really meeting, you know, their expectations when it comes to responsible marketing. And first, just to introduce TRUSTe and what we do. We are one of these resources that can provide best practices for affiliate marketers and for networks. We have been around for 10 years. It's a familiar green and black seal, as you can see down in the corner, that's on half of the top 50 websites and on over 2,000 other websites, including Yahoo, AOL, many of the large companies that you're familiar with. We also certify a number of lead generation, email marketing, and other types of publishers that are attempting to collect information from consumers and convert them to customers. We provide best practices for consumer privacy that can help with compliance with the FTC regulations, which Gary was talking about earlier, CAN spam, and we also provide a certification for software that we certify that it's it's not anti-spyware, but it's spyware-free software. And some of those companies, there's 24 of those software publishers, ComScore, Conduit, Weatherbuck, Coupons are examples of those companies. As part of creating that program, not only are we doing compliance monitoring for consumer complaints for websites, but we are also monitoring the major affiliate distribution networks for software now to ensure that they're providing adequate notice and choice to consumers for those software publishers as well. So as I mentioned and as Sanj mentioned, we provide rules of the road for you. There are other organizations that you can go to find these things to prepare yourself to be compliant, and they include the NAI, the IAB, the OPA, and other places, including the FTC itself, I'm sure has some guidance on their website. And then I want to emphasize one thing which I don't think has been mentioned yet, and that is that being proactive and being prepared and providing responsible marketing to consumers can also help build your top line, not just protect you from potential risk in violations that you find. So for our seal of approval, which marks a company that does a good job of protecting consumer privacy, in particular for lead generation websites, we've seen in A/B and multivariate testing that it can lead to a 20% increase in conversion. It enables companies to collect more information from consumers, to convert them, and to actually increase their sales. So I don't think it's just protecting yourself from potential legal risks, but it can also, you're really demonstrating that you're a leader not only to your partners, but also to the customers that you're potentially trying to convert. So I'm just going to pull all these out. And I think these are very consistent with what Sanj and Gary were talking about, and Steve. Basically, that you need to know where your brand is being distributed, so having an awareness, obviously, of your affiliate network is important, and implementing security and audit measures. It's not enough just to have a contract that provides you with some CYA for your affiliate network. You really need to have a proactive monitoring program, and in addition to the contracts that you have with them that bind them, that you can enforce when necessary. We also in our current program, in particular with Trusted Download, we have active monitoring and alert schemes to let us know when the 24 companies that are in the Trusted Download program are facing issues with affiliates. But also in the general web seal program, we're answering thousands of complaints every year from consumers about things such as CAN spam violations, et cetera. What's interesting about our compliance program is that we found that inevitably some % of your affiliates are out of compliance, A, and B, that usually all of the problems that we've had with CAN spam and other types of marketing complaints from consumers have to do typically with partners. They may be email marketing providers, people who are not maintaining suppression lists for CAN spam, et cetera. So really staying on top of affiliates through active monitoring is important, and it's a service that third parties like TRUSTe and others can help you with. So in particular for TRUSTe, we're seeing an increase in consumer privacy complaints, and we think that this is because consumers are actually becoming more and more educated. There's a lot of attention on privacy now. The quality of the complaints that we're receiving directly from consumers regarding things like CAN spam complaints or spyware in software or illegal downloads, things like that, the quality and nature is becoming more relevant and more less frivolous. And the majority of the compliance issues that we're seeing are resulting from partner or affiliate issues. We monitor the 3 major affiliate networks for 24 companies, and all of the enforcement actions that we've had so far with those companies are not a result of problems with their software or their website or their disclosures and notices to consumers, but with affiliates bundling the software or in some other way not providing the required notice and choice that they had required in their affiliate contracts with those companies. To wrap that up a little bit, another benefit of proactive consumer protection and compliance, I think, is not only that I think it can increase your conversions, et cetera, which you're trying to achieve, but also because we were speaking just briefly about the FTC and FTC enforcement actions. The FTC prefers that you do the monitoring yourself, that you find it, that you deal with it, and that you act on it, because they would prefer that self-regulation take care of that companies do it themselves rather than getting involved. So TRUSTe can be very helpful with companies in doing that, and all of the complaints that we help resolve, the end goal is to build trust between companies and their end customers, and to resolve things in private and make sure that they're addressed quickly. So I think by being proactive, you get that benefit as well.
Thank you. So what I want to do now is finish up before we do the Q&A and give you an idea of how at Media Breakaway we try to be proactive in this area. So under prevent, we have guidelines. We have under the different venues that we have, so say Ringtone may have its own marketing guidelines because that seems to be an area that needs special attention. We have on the left a pending affiliate checklist. This is where I tell you when people apply to be an affiliate, it's online. Their application, every single one of them is looked at by our pending staff, and they have to, every answer has to be, you know, positive on this checklist. So if there's one of the things is the pending analyst has to talk to the person making the application. It's not all by email. So if we can't make physical contact with the affiliate, they're not accepted. And every one of these, like I said, every box on that has to be, the right box has to be answered, and if not, the affiliate is not accepted, and that's why we have a very low rate. But we're finding that's one of the things about weeding out the bad affiliates. I want to tell you about bad affiliates and rogue affiliates. They are out there and they're getting smarter and smarter. We find we've been running a lot of technology scripts now and looking at how these applications came in, and we picked up that every single day at 3 a.m. 8 applications came in, and we were able to trace it to the same IP address in Russia. And you know, there was no way to make physical contact, and all of the information on the applications were identical, but using different names and different email addresses. And these are what we all call one-hit wonders. These people want, you know, the first day they would get an offer and be live, they'd blow it up, do something illegal, and all hell would break loose. But that's the kind of things you have to go through now in order to be in this business and stay alive and not have problems with regulators and do the right thing. So again, we couldn't emphasize more the use of having checklists to not only ensure, you know, you're walking the talk and doing the right thing, but that your program will be doing the right thing and you won't allow the wrong people to be operating with you. Under protecting yourself and your integrity and being compliant, we have a very harsh enforcement system. It starts out, the first one on the left is based on our agreement. We'll send somebody basically it's a warning notice. If the violation was not serious and it's the first time they've ever had a problem, we tell the affiliate exactly what the problem is and what the consequences will be if it's not fixed. The middle one's a compliance review. We randomly select affiliates and advertisers that we're working with, and we just analyze everything on the web page, and we'll send them the results of our compliance review. It may be all perfect, or they may need some help in what they're currently doing. And last but not least is the termination notice, and that's to show that you mean business. And it's when we terminate somebody, it's a lifetime ban, and it's enforced. And I can tell you a lot of people don't like it. It causes a lot of animosity, but there's nothing, you know, normally we've given that person at least one warning, and second is, or they've done something that they know they've done the wrong thing, and they're off to another network. So it's time for you. We'd love to hear your questions, and hopefully we can find some answers or tell you we'll get the answers for you. Anybody have any questions of anybody on the panel? Yes, sir.
Spam, unsolicited, from something that they're signed up for and they decided they don't want to get it, and it's easier to market as spam than to actually go to unsubscribing, or at least they think it is. Because I hear in common conversation a lot of people refer to spam, and they refer, and spam equates to commercial email, you know, much, you know, as opposed to unsolicited email.
Yeah. My experience is that spam is being defined by the user and by most of the ISPs now as something that the user didn't want. doesn't mean they didn't ask for it. We find when we operate through these complaint loops, spam cop, all the various spam, you know, I was going to say anti-spam organizations, but people who are monitoring this is, we usually prove about 99.5% of the people who receive the commercial email asked for it. You know, they registered, they signed up. And I think what Sanj was saying is how, you know, and Yahoo and probably the others look at it is, we agree with you. We're not going to argue with the sender of the email that more likely than not, this person opted in. The question is did they, you know, how well did they understand they opted in? Did you give them a, you know, send a second opt-in or a second confirming, you know, to them and say, look, you know, thank you for opting in to receive our newsletter, you know, and we look forward, and if you have any issues, let us know. We don't think that, by the way, that's really good to show the ISPs what you're doing, but again, the user at that point normally accepts it again because they say, well, yeah, I just signed up and I got this email. So what we're finding is that where you have that automatic reply to someone who's opted in and that moment you send it back to them and say, want to confirm that you opted in, that most people will say, of course, I just did it, how stupid do you think I am? But then they're the most likely to say a week from now when you send them an email that, you know, they'll report it as spam. We find that sending the confirming opt-in about 5 to 7 days later and reminding them that they opted in, it's a lower conversion rate, but less of a complaint loop problem. That those folks now will go, yes, I remember, and I'm, you know, absolutely want it, so keep sending it. Those folks are less likely to hit the spam button when they get your next email than those who, you know, the day they made the decision to opt in and then confirmed it. So that's our experience. Sanj or anybody on the panel have any different experience?
Well, I think, let me agree wholeheartedly with what Steve says. I think that's probably largely the case. I don't have any empirical data but, like Steve does on it. I would say that, you know, people mark things as spam as a way to say, hey, I don't want this email anymore, right? I think that one response that the affiliate market community could have is, can we make it easier to unsubscribe? Right? And right now, unsubscribes, it's an art, right, of how you put an unsubscribe at the bottom and how it gets reacted to. And then actually, even when you click it, what happens? Does it automatically unsubscribe? Do you got to go put in a password? I think I get email from thestreet.com. I don't know if any of you signed up for this. And I get 12 emails a day from them. But to unsubscribe, they take me to a page where I got to put in a password. And I can't remember what my password was. So I've been stuck with getting their email for ad infinitum, right? And I could take the step of just marking it as spam, but really it's probably, you know, they might survive a, you know, a feedback loop process. So one of the thoughts, though, and I'll just throw this out there, is having someone been in the affiliate marketing game as well before Yahoo, is that when people opt in, I would say in my experience is there's varying degrees of real consent or meaningful consent that the user is providing. And there is practice where someone, when they opt in, they get opted into several lists. So if a person comes to a site, signs up for a particular, gets a free ringtone or a free, you know, emoticon or whatever, and now is agreed to get marketing communications, that email address is now going to be populated on several lists. So if you think about it from the user standpoint, I mean, is it a rational response for them to just say, you know what, I'll mark it as spam. I can't manage all of the different emails and offers that I'm going to get. And I think that if you really look at it, there's probably a fair amount of that going on. One, you shouldn't assume consumers are that educated that they got 10 days to not get the email. I mean, it's unrealistic to think people have that level of knowledge. Two, it may be a rational response. It's just a lot easier to hit a not a spam button. And perhaps one of the things we could work on together as an industry is there another result? I mean, is there something else that we can make it, you know, make it easier for the consumer?
So I think unsubscribing is tricky for people, even if it's easy. And from a non-commercial point of view, Yahoo groups, I'm a moderator of a Yahoo group. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. We get people responding to the entire group that says, you know, please unsubscribe me. Even though Yahoo groups, we have no control over how it's formatted, but there's an opt-out link. You have to join the group, and you've got the ability to opt in. and people are still not even emailing the moderators, they're emailing the entire group of, 10,000 people saying, please unsubscribe.
Right, so it is a challenge. And Yahoo Groups is, very different from Yahoo Mail. There's a different process and all that that takes place. I think that email is frankly been so successful. It's essentially at such low cost, right? So it offers you a lot of value that it's, again, unsubscribing right now, people have varying degrees of how do I say this? Trust, yeah, exactly, that's very good. Trust with how well that's going to work. And as an industry, I think we need to address that. And I think more people would not mark things as spam if they felt like unsubscribes were really a good user experience.
Yeah, I want to really emphasize that point, is that we're still dealing with the urban legend of, if you unsubscribe, that means your name will then go to 100 other lists. I believe the general public still has that in their mind from years ago, and it just hasn't changed, and we do have to keep working on it through public relations, and probably, if we ever get an industry group together to have a campaign that says it's okay to do that. I think if you go on the Microsoft website, they still recommend to their users not to unsubscribe. I mean, which is something I've told them is just absolutely ludicrous, because it jams up their own complaint loop, because they're urging people to report opt-in email as spam. But it doesn't, but that's their problem. Yes?
Let me ask you a question. For that, what is it, the feedback?
Feedback loop?
Okay. I don't know, maybe you guys consider that, like, probably we as email marketers, if, for example, that's gonna probably tell us if our, consumers, whatever, they're marking it as junk mail, like spam or something. We are not going to be able to know if they actually did it because they feel they never opted in, or because they just didn't like whatever was sent them. Have you considered, when people mark stuff as junk, probably maybe asking like a quick pop-up, like confirming that this is is this an unsolicited email, or do you just like make that part of the loop? That way, we as email marketers can know, like for example, in the feedback that we received, it's like, hey, no, they're not saying it's spam, they're saying they just didn't like the offer, whatever it was, and then we know, okay, people are not remembering our brand. That's what's happening. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there.
No, excellent suggestion. I can tell you, we've talked to AOL, MSN, and Google about that very thing, about giving people an option to take, rather than just having it's either spam or nothing, is to have some kind of option. And they're just not that interested, to tell you the truth. I mean, that's just their thing, is, look, we have so much to do here. As Sanj said before, the burden is on you, not on the ISP, and their resources are limited. There's a thing of, I've said this, I don't know that there's an ISP out there that makes money from mailing. That it's a very, very thin margin business, and any money they spend on their abuse department is really looked as a terrible, extraordinary expense. So again, at some point, we're hoping, if enough people keep emphasizing this, and we can show as emailers to the ISPs that it makes sense for them to do that, that's when they'll do it. But at this stage, there's not a profit motive for them to do it.
Yeah, let me.
I'm sorry, I want to add on to that. I like what he said. If you think back a few years ago, we had a really increased rate of chargebacks versus refunds in the merchant side of the business.
Yeah.
And the merchants really helped us as the marketers and the producers. They started getting involved in converting chargebacks to refunds. They wanted to get involved in making sure that the laziness of the consumer, just going back to the credit card company, was truly a chargeback versus a refund. Why aren't we treating the email industry that way? Why is the producer? Now, I'm not a big guy. When you guys send out 1 million a day, that's not a large number in the world of what you guys do, but I hear 3 or 4 days later on my feedback of data that can change hourly. It almost is useless data to me at that point to respond to whether my creative is of any use, or whether or not my consumers just didn't like a certain creative, but they liked our our product and our industry, I like what he's saying. Where do we get the opportunity in this industry to get quality feedback so we can help reduce this burden that I believe, I'm not sure, it's somewhere in the lazy consumer stage, because when we, in our customer service department, get our hands on those complaints, we find out that they're like, oh, we didn't realize it was you. That was a different creative than you normally send us. We didn't realize, we just put it into our junk mail. So we've had an opportunity to deal with that. It just seems that Yahoo and our friends at Google and all these other places, Enom, Get Response, all these great marketers, just throw us into a category of spam and want to quickly shut you off before giving us an opportunity to address the consumer and the
Well, this is a sermon I've been giving for the last 2 years. Can you name any other trade organization like ours, the billions and billions of dollars we generate, that doesn't have a professional trade association representing us? And so my answer to that question is until we have a trade association who represents our best interests and is one voice coming into the ISPs, they just won't listen to us. I mean, I think they are discussing it, they understand it, but it's just they don't get it, that it's the sense of urgency that we have to make it happen until we can show them that there's a profit model to this to them. That's going to be their incentive.
And Steve, there's a little bit of a fear factor out there. This word spam, to be a spammer, it's a horrible label. If you have a contract with an ISP, every ISP has an acceptable use policy, their AUP. It's somewhere on their website. Guarantee you, 99 times out of 100, that AUP says you may not send unsolicited commercial email. Unsolicited commercial email is perfectly legal by canned spam as long as you provide the opt-outs and you honor them. But they say you can't send unsolicited email. And when you speak to them, if you work on behalf of a company that sends a lot of email, you say to them, look, I can't comply with this. I send one email to someone who didn't specifically ask for it. I'm in breach of your policy. And their response is, we know this doesn't reflect reality, but our concern is that some emails are going to come through from you, consumers are going to complain, then some company like Spam House or Spam Cop's going to come along and label us. So we need to have the ability to turn you off right away. And we know it may not be fair, and we know you're even complying with the law, but we've got to have the ability to go back to that third party, to the Spam House, and say, yes, we cut them off the minute we got that notice from them. And yeah, it makes it difficult for us to comply because, quite honestly, it's not fair in every instance.
Yeah. I'm going to give you an example. We probably have about 5 different carriers that we work with for our bandwidth. And one of them notified us, this was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, that they were going to terminate us, because we had so many complaints. And that just didn't make it, out of nowhere, how did we get these complaints? And this is rare because normally the carriers aren't interested either. They're like the ISPs, where the carrier, goes somewhere else if you don't like our policy. But this one we convinced to work with us. We found it was one person in the state of Washington who registered over 300 email addresses through one of the ISPs and then spam copped each email once the email started coming in, and would continually, would send the same email to spam cop 5 different times. So the complaint was on one carrier on one day, probably in 2 hours, 5,000 complaints came in, and a carrier, who says your threshold is 3 per day, went nuts until we were able, with cooperation, to say, give us a chance to investigate this, and we showed it to them, and and they obviously didn't turn us off, but we try to tell that story of, isn't it better to identify this nut job in Washington and looking at pursuing charges against him for interference with a business relationship and make an example out of him than making an example out of us? So again, back to, wouldn't it be nice to have a trade association who would do that for you? Any other questions?
You mentioned about doing a new feedback loop. I know one of the things on our company's agenda is, I think AOL has a new program that's going in the beginning of this month, which is complying with some standards thing. Is yours the same as that? I ask because as someone who sends out email, we probably send out 500,000 a week to all opt-in subscribers. Just trying to keep on top of it, making sure we're whitelisted on all the places and have the right feedback loops in place. They're all different right now.
Yeah, you know what, I honestly don't know. I don't know, I don't have the details on the product spec for that. And I should preface one thing, I'm not, I work with the Yahoo Mail team, but I'm not with Yahoo Mail in our org and product, although I did confer with them on these comments. So I don't know, to answer your question, yes, I would agree that it might make sense if the ISPs were to make it one uniform process. I don't know if we're there yet.
Yeah.
The one thing, if I could add to these comments I've heard above here, is that what I'm hearing, and listen, I've been in the affiliate marketing game for longer than I've been at Yahoo. So I understand, and I get it, and not to be cheesy about it, but I feel your pain. The one thing I'm hearing is when we say, like, or understanding who an ISP thinks their customer is. And the customer is really the user, right? And what I'm hearing from you is you want to solve for yourself. It's a problem that you've got. You're saying, give us a solution that helps resolve it for you. I'm not sure if that's really solving for the user. And maybe maybe what you ought to do as part of what the industry could do together is, hey, how do you solve this for the user? Putting in a pop-up that actually makes it more difficult, some would say, when you look at the gross volume numbers, to actually register a complaint or a spam or whatever, it may not be a great user experience. So I would say that's one solution, and potentially I kind of wrote it down here, but if there's something else, again, make it better for the user. Is it maybe the pop-ups ought to happen when you get the consent in the first place?
I agree. I guess I don't even care if you're able to register it. That's fine. The merchants on the Visa and MasterCard side took it upon themselves to lower chargebacks by getting involved in inquiry as to why someone is doing the process. I don't care if it's in the background, so it's not burdensome on the user, but we have a business relationship. I drive a lot of traffic into your network, just like you want me to drive traffic into your network. And we have a relationship with users that use our environment together. And it works wonderfully, no one's complaining. But if it doesn't work, it's a one-sided complaint where I'm hearing about it way too late. Now I have a score, this subjective score that's only based on a user's perception without any opportunity to deal with it. I guess that the industry would like to see, I believe, some opportunity before this basis of a score. I don't care if it doesn't. I'd rather it not burden the user. But as a provider in the system, there should be some opportunity before a determination of this concept that nobody wants.
Yeah. I don't think anybody disagrees with you. I just put up Sanj's slide from earlier where he pointed to this www.mog.org, by the way. And MOG is an organization that represents all the major ISPs, and they meet about at least 2 or 3 times a year, sometimes in the United States and some exotic places. But that's the organization where we have gone and tried to get them to standardize their practices of the whitelisting and the feedback loops. So if any of you are interested in trying to get more information on how to get the ISPs to have a uniformity among themselves, this would be the organization to go after or to contact, because like I say, it's all the major ISPs and a lot of the anti-spam organizations like Spam House and Spam Cop go to these meetings too. Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, this is for Sanj. Do you have more information about the implementation of feedback loops? Currently, we're not on that, and we're very anxious for that to move forward. Is there going to be priorities set on who's going to be set up first? Do you know how long the rollout's going to take?
No, I don't have any details on the feedback loop. I think what they've said is that it's going to roll out, like I said, it should be by the end of September. And I don't know, and I'll take it here as a note, I don't know how that's going to be promoted.
Okay.
So that the broader community should have access to
Are
that.
you accepting incentives for that?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, because obviously we'd like to get on the whitelist, but until we can process this, the feedback loops, it would make sense to do that.
Right, and I think it's a fair question about what type of PR we'll do to announce this, because I think what I'm sensing is a lot of people don't know that's going to happen, but that is what the when I talked to the mail team, they had indicated they have published this previously, and I forgot the links. So it is out there, but we should make it more broadly known.
One last question if you want. Yes, sir.
So who won the privacy policy lawsuit, Greer or 1-800-Flowers?
You know, once you get lawyers involved, it gets very technical. And 1-800-Flowers said, well, if you're suing us on our privacy policy says our terms and conditions apply. Our terms and conditions say you have to sue us in a particular state. So you've got to come here if you want to sue us. And then it got tied up in that procedural stuff. So leave it to lawyers to ruin a cute story by procedural issues.
Well, thank you for your attention, and thanks to the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. You used 2 hats.